Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Risk Matrix with James Junkin.
Roll Tide, and I want to appreciate all of you for all of your calls and messages and text and LinkedIn direct messages worrying about my mental health after I lost to Vandy. I assure you I am okay, but I appreciate all your concern. Thank you.
So James Junkin is marked safe from the Alabama loss to Vanderbilt, and I'm your second co-host, Dr. Martin. And today we're going to have an episode of the Risk Matrix talking to Tyler Thompson, who's an HSE advisor and coordinator at Mariner Golf. A little bit about his career. We always like to get safety people on that have a lot of field experience and expertise in different areas, and Tyler is certainly that. But before we get started, everybody knows that we're powered by Veriforce, right? But today's episode is brought to you by Safe Driver, the newly launched instructor-led safety driving program for the oil and gas industry. Driving fatalities lead all causes of death across all industries, but especially in the oil and gas industry. Oil and gas workers are 27 times more likely to perish in a vehicle accident than the public. Vehicle accidents account for 27% of total fatalities in the oil and gas industry. Safe Driver by Veriforce is not just a course. It's a commitment to transform driving behaviors and ensure the safety of workers in one of the most hazardous industries. By equipping trainers with cutting-edge knowledge and tools, we aim to significantly reduce the distressing record of SIF, serious injury and fatality incidents. For more information and to enroll in the program, contact training sales at veriforce.com. Tyler, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here.
I'm glad to be on.
So James tells me,
baby.
I'm in the matrix.
Welcome to the Matrix. James tells me that you have some rich experience in the oil and gas industry and all streams, which is kind of cool. Why don't we start off with where'd you come from? How'd you get into this industry, and where do you see yourself going?
Okay. Well, I was a football player at a Division III school, and I ended up beginning my career in coaching football. I was a student assistant, and then I coached in high school. Really loved it, but I wanted to get a really good career outside of football because football was all I knew for a long time. I played it since I was 8 till I was 22 years old. Well, I had a conversation with my father. He is in safety. He's been doing safety for probably 30 years, offshore, onshore, working with catalysts and just about everywhere you can think of in the United States. So I got on my tools. I learned the trade of boiler making and confined space activities and scaffolding. So shout out to my scaffold builders. I love scaffold builders. That's where I learned how to be a safety person. Because my first job, I worked with Brand Safeway and safety, and I loved it. Did turnarounds. And after a while, I got to move on to work with my father at CatSpec and work with ETS all over the country, doing inert and non-inert catalyst changeouts. And I met a lot of great people. I learned from a lot of different safety guys. And then COVID hit. So we kind of took a downturn in the oil field. And I had a conversation with my dad. He said, you may want to go, reach out to other people. So I ended up doing various turnarounds, building levees with safety, electrical turnarounds. And then now I train people at Mariner Golf and also as a Veriforce master trainer under James. And my goals for the future are to build my way up at Mariner Golf and Veriforce master training and to get as knowledgeable as someone like my father or James or Matt Stewart, another great safety trainer who I work for as well.
Man, you're too kind, Tyler. I appreciate those words more than you may know. But you're one of the top, what I consider to be young safety professionals, right? You folks, now that I've gotten old and I got all this gray hair, young is in folks in their 40s, Dr. Martin, right? Them young people, right? But Tyler's
I hate to say it, a lot younger than me.
Not by much. But Tyler's a great safety professional and kind of bridges that gap that we sometimes see but in safety training, where people have a lot of knowledge related to regulations and instructional design and delivery, but they don't have a lot of field experience. And Tyler bridges that gap. And
so I just want to say, I love the phrase, I jumped on my tools. Okay. Because one of the best ways to learn how to be safe, how to learn the ropes and safety is to do it, right? Learning by doing. Now, hopefully along the way, you got some safety training from the people that you were working for, and that kind of spurred a little bit more of your growth too, because jumping on your tools is one thing, but jumping on your tools with somebody giving you the knowledge, skills, and ability to be safe is also important. So tell us a little bit about what your safety journey was as somebody on their tools to start off.
Well, I started off with Excel, and we had a great team. We had, I was the young guy, and I learned a lot from our older guys who were, been in the industry 30, 40, 50 years, but they weren't complacent. They understood, hey, you know what? I may have been doing this for 20 years, but I need to still do it the right way. Then when I got with Brown and Root, we had a general foreman we called Babe. He was an older gentleman. He was an old Creole Cajun man. And he was the best person I've ever learned from that was on tools, on how to be safe.
I love it.
He took the time. It didn't matter what it was. I mean, if we were working 12 hours a day, he was with the guys. He wasn't sitting in the office, doing the paperwork all the time. He made sure he came out and he instructed us.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, James.
I was going to say, Tyler, you made that transition from tools from the craft, from the trade into safety. And we get calls all the time, people that are interested in becoming safety professionals, transitioning away from the craft. What kind of advice do you give to someone out there who may be a craft worker or been a union tradesman for many years that's deciding to get into safety? What kind of steps should they go through? What advice would you give?
What I did was I had a conversation with someone who was older that I trusted. I had a conversation with my father. I had a conversation with another Brown and Root employee who's been there 20 or 30 years. He's good friends with my dad. And I said, hey, this is what I want to do. What do you think I should do? And then I heard one phrase that was one, and I try to say it when I train. There's three things that are going to happen on every single job site in the United States: good things, bad things, and weird things. And that safety is what we can control. So that's what I learned. And that's the best advice I can give to someone is when you're on your tools, don't take it for granted. Because you're going to learn more from being on your tools than anything on how to be safe.
So I love that you said that your crew at Excel and at Brown and Root that you weren't complacent, right? And we've all heard that phrase, or I think we have, the complacency kills, right? And I think one of the best things that comes out of people coming from the crafts into safety is that they've had eyes on the job, and if they have good mentors, like you said, that they do understand that here's where safety lies. We can do better. And sometimes things happen that, oh my gosh, we never planned for, right? And their learning experiences, good or bad. So now you're in the training environment, right? And you're bringing people along as a master trainer. What do you see as the student base coming into safety or coming into your safety classes?
Well, I'm kind of in both fields. As James says, we're in the contractor world at Mariner Golf. So I'm training a lot of people who are on their tools, who are maybe lower level management, on whether it's forklift, on confined space. And those guys are eager to learn because a lot of the clients we have, they have a understanding that training is important. And that's the best way. Sometimes the best way to keep me safe is training. It's that administrative control. And then on the side, when I train Veriforce, train the trainer, as James could tell you, or Matt, is we're training people who are like me or James, who their job is to train people. And the people we get in that are really, really great. These guys and gals, they are training people. They're on the front line of safety, and they're really receptive on this is the best way to train people, that everyone has their own style. But this is, you know, the way the Veriforce platform is it's really, it brings every idea together, and it makes it the best way to train people.
You know, I've been a master trainer for Veriforce for 15 years. And the really one of the things I like about Train the Trainer is it's a time to get together with fellow safety professionals, people that are dedicated to our craft, if you will, bringing workers home safe from high hazard jobs. And while training is not, you know, the final solution for every problem that we have out there, every hazard we encounter, you know, it is a portion of the mitigation methods that we use to bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs. So, you know, when we get these students in Train the Trainer, it's always good to see all the unique personalities that are there. We don't try to create robots or widgets out of people. You know, we want them to come with their own experiences, their stories, their experiences with hazards, how they deliver training, and just combine that with our standardized training program that they can customize to fit the needs of their organization. So I'm sure Tyler's got a bunch of stories about Train the Trainer. We can sit here, I give you, because every class is unique and something, how'd you say it? So something goes right, something weird goes wrong, and something weird happens.
Yes,
and I've
sir.
had plenty of weird ones right over the years. But anyway.
So we're in the risk matrix, right? So I want to talk a little bit about risk. I want to talk about how you take all these different people from different walks of life, and how do you communicate how somebody should look at risk, or how they should identify the risk in their workplace, right? Because there should be some common thread into what we're doing out there. What are your thoughts on that? How do you tell a group of whole different people that risk exists, and here's how we find it?
Well, through kind of a conversation like we're having now, every single time I do the Train the Trainer, or James does it, or Matt, or anyone, is we kind of do what we did before, is we ask everybody's background, how did they get to where they're at, and we have a discussion as what their company does. Because, you know, because we could have 8 different people and they could have 8 different disciplines. They're all going to look at something different. And when we get to a section in the Train the Trainer, I really hit on it on about HAZCOM and JSAs, that everyone's going to have a different opinion. Everyone's going to see things and not see things. So it's always good to have a conversation.
Groupthink, right? Groupthink. And I love that. I think that's a really good way to kind of look at it, is that in a class, right? In a class, you have a bunch of different people and they're helping each other figure out problems in their workplace. But then on the job site, we have everybody from the laborer on up to the foreman, superintendent, project manager, etc. And that also has to have that component of groupthink, right? That's what JSAs are for, right? That's what our toolbox meetings are for. Everybody should be getting together and voicing what they see with their own eyes and their own experience. So kudos to you for putting that into your training, because I think that's really important to convey that, you know, there's not just one person that's walking around that's responsible for safety. There's the safety person can facilitate it, but really where safety, the rubber hits the road, is where the hands are on the tools.
Absolutely. And throughout my career, this is just what I've done. Go find the person with the gray hair.
Well, like you said, didn't you say there was a wizened old man on one of your sites?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, there was, and he was great. I mean, he did it for 50 years, working for that one company, just about. And that's who I went to for everything.
And he's seen the weird things, right?
The weird.
Yes, he had horror stories that he'd talk about, and we'd sit and we'd listen and we'd take that. And, that's the one thing we hear that day. And that's, what God works in a funny way, that's the one thing that's going to happen on that job site.
Right.
And so we take it and then we roll on and be safe.
And I think that's very important when you start talking about Tyler, and a lot of your experience in turnaround activities. They call them outages up north, planned maintenance periods, where we've got outside contractors coming in, and you work with scaffold building company, right? So when you were with Brand Safeway, how many hundreds of different contractors are you working for inside a plant that you've got to work with? What would your most, do you think, building scaffolding?
And let's say any given day, I had upwards of 200 to 300 different people in various crews. They could be in any unit. There was no telling. I mean, we would build scaffolds for the maintenance at the Boilermakers, the turnaround guys. We built scaffolds for them. They'd be on a whole different level. We built scaffolding for catalyst, anything. So on any given day, I'd say probably 15 different crafts. Before noon, we have built a scaffold for.
Wow. That requires
And
a
then
lot
there's the maintenance and the all the other stuff that you have to do up until the time you take it down, right?
Oh,
So
yes, yeah.
the interactions are a multitude.
So we're talking about a lot of simultaneous operations going on at one time. In the upstream side of the oil and gas, you don't see, you're not going to have 250 different contractors out there at one time. And in a plant turnaround, you might have 250, 300, 1,000 different contractors that are inside there working while the plant's still operating. And you're out there, like you said, working with maybe 15 different craft. And so when you're talking about 15 different craft, we're talking about 15 different contract companies or more. So how do you go about, or how did you go about working in the planning before we even get there, in the planning of the work to make sure that you're not encountering hazards that other crafts may be creating, such as they're doing hot work above your head while you're trying to build this scaffolding? How did you go about organizing all that?
Well, we would first start off with a pre-turnaround meeting, and we'd go over just our basic rules. And we had some rules when I was with Brand, was we can't work under anybody and we can't work over anybody. No matter what. Didn't matter if we were working over SWAT or we were working under ETS, or if we were under our own company. If I got guys 200 feet in the air building scaffold, well, our blasters, they couldn't be under them. And then also I was a safety tech then, so I just started, but I had a very good safety manager by the name of Jason Arsenault. And he had a phrase that I say in training that everyone who I have trained since, or done a meeting since probably 10 years ago, I say 20, 20, 20. Every 20 minutes, look around 20 feet for 20 seconds. Something in the job has changed. Whether a contractor was there and they're not anymore, or someone wasn't performing hot work and who is now performing hot work.
Man, I like
Shout
that.
out to Jason. I'm stealing that. 20, 20, 20. Say it again.
20, 20, 20. Every 20 minutes, look around 20 feet for 20 seconds. Something in your scope has changed.
Consider it stolen. Consider it stolen.
Man, I like that. I like that because, in a lot of cases, when we're talking about JHAs, JSAs, things of that nature, everybody's got a different way of going about doing this. Sometimes you see we have a project JHA. Well, things change, right? Sometimes you have a JSA daily at the tailgate meeting, and that's the last time we talk about it. Or we only talk about JSAs and review when we come back from lunch or a long break or something of that nature. But work doesn't work like that, man. Changes happen all throughout the day. And usually, sometimes that's where things can go wrong or things can get weird. So I really like that. I've never heard that before, but that may be one of the coolest things in safety. I'm stealing that from you, Tyler. And
I already stole it. You're going to have to steal it from me.
All right, I'm stealing it from you, Dr. Martin. I'm gonna put it in my toolbox, but I'll give you credit. I'll give y'all credit for it,
I'll
right?
give you credit. I'll give Jason credit also.
Hey,
2020.
I'll put it in an in-text citation in my mind. How about that?
Yep. As long as my name's in there and Tyler's name and Jason's name is in there.
That's right. But I think it's cool to have things like that because craft can remember that. 2020, 2020. And it becomes part of the organic DNA of your organization. You get to go around and say, hey, bro, have you 2020? You know, I'd put that on hard hat stickers. It'd be on the JHAs. I'd be talking about.
I had certain crews, they would write it on the JSA, underline it, and put like an exclamation point saying, hey, this is, you know, in bold letters, and they'd highlight it. Just so, hey, they see it. And like you said, a craft guy, that's something they're going to pick up and it's going to spread to everybody.
Hey, you want to bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs working in chemical processing plants, refineries, downstream assets? 2020.
Cool. So in the work that you do now, are you getting out in the field anymore? Or are you mostly doing training?
Mostly training, but sometimes we have to get out in the field as if I'm performing maybe aerial man lift training or forklift training. And the way we do it and the way Matt Stewart has set it up is it's very hands-on. So once we're done going over the PowerPoint videos and having a discussion, because I like to have a discussion with the guys whenever I'm training them on forklift, because some of these guys have been driving a forklift for 30 years. They know more than any trainer in the world because
they don't want to hear from some young whippersnapper how they're not doing it right.
But I like to have a conversation with them and say, hey, you know, you get your input. Then after that, we go out and I put up cones and I have them pick up what they're going to be picking up at work. It's not just an empty pallet. And that's the kind of field work that I normally do. And I love it because it's close to doing site safety, but I don't have to be out there 12 hours a day in the heat anymore. You know, it's maybe 2 hours.
And that's where Veriforce has built a bunch of competency-based courses. You know, when we did an assessment a few years ago, we found that 96% of the contractors that we assessed were doing some sort of safety fundamentals class like Safe Land, Basic Pipeline, OSHA 10, something of that nature. But only in 6% of the cases did we find that there was a comprehensive competency-based training program based on what OSHA requires at a minimum and, sort of industry best practices. So you might see people that had gone through a e-learning session, but can I really learn how to do lockout, tag out only by e-learning? What about confined space entry? I want to go into confined spaces. Can I learn from e-learning? Sure, you can learn from e-learning, but really where you learn best is these competency-based courses where you go and encounter scenarios that you may face in the field. I like to do it with like fall protection. Now, whether OSHA requires you to do a hands-on type training using personal fall arrest systems and all that, but let's just take the regulation out of it for a second. How would you feel if somebody came out and said, hey, here's a 20-minute PowerPoint on personal fall arrest systems. Here's your harness. Go ye therefore up this tower that's 385 feet off the ground. Be like, do what? You want me to do? So some of it's just common sense, right? You have to develop competency within workers. And that's one thing Tyler's really good about. And Veriforce has launched, and Dr. Martin, you were part of that as a member of our strategic advisory board and helping put together training programs that workers and companies can use to develop competency. I want workers trained so that when they leave the class, they feel confident that they have the knowledge, skills, and abilities necessary to go perform these tasks. So Tyler does a really good job, and I think Veriforce's new catalog of courses that we have based on competency-based training are really good. Things like lockout, tagout. I know you worked on that one in energy isolation. You and me and Bill Walker, who's the chair of SafeLand, worked on respiratory protection. So all these competency-based classes include a hands-on component so students can demonstrate knowledge, skills, and abilities. And Tyler's really good because he's been on the tools, he's been on the craft. He hadn't just worn a respirator in a training scenario. Tyler's worn a respirator inside a unit.
For real, for real, for real.
For real, for real, for real. And when you walk out of training or whatever into that plant for the first time, man, it can be overwhelming. Now, Tyler's dad was involved in so he heard about this stuff growing up. But Tyler, tell us about how you felt in your experience the first time you walked in one of these plants.
First time I walked in one of the plants was I was working for a scaffold company. So I've never, you know what I mean? I'm a big guy. I don't climb. I mean, I was never on a jungle gym as a kid. I stayed low to the ground. And they wanted me to climb 30, 40 feet. That's not that big on a scaffold. I've been on scaffolds 200 feet. So it was kind of daunting. But luckily, some of that was taken away by I could talk to people who were not complacent, who were really, really good at their job, really good scaffold builders, who if I had a question, hey, you know what, does my harness look good? They'd help me put it on. Or they'd look at it and say, hey, you know what, you probably need to do this. This looks a little better. So it was daunting at first, but I always asked questions. I'm a big guy on there are no stupid questions. If you got a question, ask.
So that kind of goes back to organizational culture, right? If we wanted to give some advice to contractors working inside plants, doing turnaround activities, maintenance activities in this era where we have a good bit of employee turnover, you've got a lot of new hands that are coming out there and working with you. The first time you walk into these plants can be very, very, like you use the word daunting. I'm going to use another word, scary, intimidating. There's a lot going on. So how do we get workers home safe in those scenarios? Have a good mentorship program. Tyler, your career and my career kind of mirror each other a little bit because you and I both have had the experience of and the benefit of having good mentors. I like to tell people, and quote Sir Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton said, if I can see farther than most, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. And I had really good teachers. And fortunately, they took that upon themselves. But if you're listening to our podcast here and you're a safety professional for a contractor that works in these plants, develop good mentors in your organization, right? There's one thing for me to read about it in a book. There's another thing for me to get up and tell you what the regulations are and what our policies are. But it's something else for you to hear that from people who've actually walked the walk, who climbed the scaffolds, who've been out there with the hazards, who've worked on the tools. So that's kind of my advice, and I think that's advice to Tyler as well. Get some mentors. Encourage people to do it, right? Encourage people to help other people. And that's how we all learn.
That's right, James. I mean, we do stand on the shoulders of giants. It's also nice to keep the giants in your back pocket. So the other thing I say is make sure you have a phone a friend list, as you go along, whether it's in the trades, whether it's other safety professionals, whether it's CEOs, managers, supervisors, whatever, have those people in the back pocket because it's never a bad thing to phone a friend or two friends or three friends or five friends to get a handle on what the hazards are. So Tyler, buddy, thank you for being on our show.
Of course, it was a great experience. I got to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you from James because I work with James. All good things.
You can always call me. Here, put me on your phone a friend list. I don't know as much as James, but I know something.
That's not true. That's not true. You're the only doctor on here. I'm just a doctor wannabe, right?
You're going to be a doctor soon, so. But Tyler, thank you so much. And James, tell them what they can do if they want to hear more from people like Tyler and our other guests.
Look, a new episode of the Risk Matrix drops every Tuesday around noon Central. Get on over there to Veriforce's YouTube channel, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button so it can pop up and remind you. But guess what? You don't have to listen to us live when it drops. There are, I guess, I don't know what episode we're on now, Dr. Martin. We're getting close to 70.
We're in like the 60s or something like that. I mean, I think
right?
we're really going.
We've been rolling. We have a whole catalog of episodes with interesting guests and tidbits based on my career and Dr. Martin's career. And look, go back, check out some of these past episodes. You can also go over to Spotify and check us out there. Hopefully coming soon, we'll be expanding to other podcast platforms so it can come to you in the method that you like it. But look, follow us, like us. Hey, it's going to be posted on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's going to be on LinkedIn, so you can check us out there. But Dr. Martin, who are we looking for?
If you want to be on the show, if you got something to talk about, if you want to talk about risk or anything that has to do with risk in the business environment, give us a shout out. We've gotten a few in the recent past. We're going to bring some people on from LinkedIn, but if you're listening on Spotify, you can find us on LinkedIn, email us, message us, and we'll get you on the show and we can wrap with you like we have with Tyler today. So thanks again, Tyler. We really appreciate it.
Thank you,
James.
Tyler. Thank you, Tyler. Get back to work. But thanks for coming on the show. And thank you to all of our listeners who are listening to us on our podcast. We really appreciate you listening, commenting, and following us. Until next time, y'all keep bringing those workers home safe from high hazard jobs.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.